on stage and let's start. It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon, respected, esteemed members of the panel today. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the management of Delhi Public Schools and Pallavi Group of Schools. Today's virtual conference is the second step in the international conference that has been envisaged by all our schools. The idea behind this comes from, of course, the NEP 2020, the book that seems to be like the icing on the cake. And all we want is further inputs from all the esteemed members who've joined us today. So with that small little introduction, may I now take the pleasure first of introducing the panel members to all of you, followed by a quick 1-minute brief comment on the NEP 2020 from the esteemed members. May I start with Professor Anjum Sivio, ma'am. I take the pleasure and honor from all of us, ma'am, to welcome you to the virtual conference. Ma'am is Dean Academics, NCERT, and head of the Manu Darpan Cell, NCERT. She has been working in the National Council of Educational Research and Training, NCERT, for the last 33 years. That's a vast experience coming from you, ma'am. She has contributed to the development of the National Curriculum Framework, position paper on peace education, textbooks in psychology, which I actually have on my table for classes 11 and 12. Ma'am has played a key role in training of counselors through the diploma course in guidance and counseling offered by NCERT. As a member of various committees, she also has provided academic inputs for designing of the psychology syllabi, the B.Ed courses, value peace education, guiding counseling programs. She has organized a lovely host of training programs and provided consultancy to government and non-government agencies in the training of teachers, school counselors, teacher educators, and administrators. May I request Anjum Sivio, ma'am, to give a quick 1-minute input from your end before I go to the next panel member.
Thank you, ma'am. You're asking me to talk about my passion in 1 minute. Very difficult task.
Sure.
So, good evening to everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to your teachers on NEP and specifically on socio-emotional aspects of learning, rather the effective concerns in learning. There are 1 or 2 points I would very quickly like to highlight is that till today, the cognitive aspects have been the focus of all schooling. The effective aspects have been largely neglected. And it is this neglect which kind of created the situation which is there in the country, the kind of students, focusing too much on exams, being stressed about exams and examinations because the other aspects were not given importance. Being responsible, caring, sharing, cooperative learning, all those aspects which make a complete human being were largely neglected, I would say that. And it won't be wrong to say that it's not only the educational literature, it is also the psychological literature which has treated emotions, feelings, and affective concerns in a very different manner, as if they were detrimental to one's learning, as if they were, hindrances to learning. And it was only, as early as in the 90s, the emotional intelligence concept awakened us to the thought that emotions too can guide us to be intelligent, So emotions guide our thinking and they help us to be intelligent. So whether it was Goleman, Peter Salovey's work, that really was a big landmark in the education for all of us. So having said that, there are a number of researches we did in the NCERT, which also focused on how emotions were supporting children's learning and how cognitive engagement can be enhanced if emotional engagement is enhanced. And many of these researches can be accessed on our website. The second point which I would like to draw the attention of the group here is the policies. It's not that the first time, the policy has talked about effective concern, from the Modalier to the Kothari Commission to the 86 policy, the National Curriculum Framework 2000-2005. But what is it different that NEP 2020 talked about? NEP 2020 actually positioned emotions, affective states at the core of child's development, at the core of child's learning. And this is where the difference came, So effective concerns and socio-emotional learning actually got a position which it had never got earlier. So the curriculum framework, the competencies, and the learning outcomes, they all are now dealing with, or they are going to deal with this aspect of learning. So when I say it is at the core, it means it is going to be assessed, it is going to be taught. Because it is going to be assessed, it is going to become more important. We know it in our country that, whatever is assessed is very important. So if this is assessed, it's going to become important. So along with this, there's another concern is that in teacher preparation, also effective concerns have gathered a lot of importance. The National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education 2009 talked about caring concerns in teacher education. So it's important that we train our teachers in understanding how these concerns are important, so that when they are in the classroom, they are able to deal with the students in a manner they should. So having said that, there are one or two things I would like to highlight in the connection of NEP, and that is the NEP talks of socio-emotional learning, and it talks of effective concerns as a preventive measure, as a proactive measure. And it talks of this in a very developmental, in a spiral kind of, curricular developments which are going to take place. Like, for example, empathy can be taught at class 1, can also be taught at class 9th and 10th. What differences are there in empathy at 10th and class 1? That, of course, is, stage specific, looking at the developmental age and stage of the child. So, it's not the remediation the policy is talking of. Of course, it does talk about counselors and social workers, but at the same time, it talks about every teacher being a guidance-minded teacher. It talks about every teacher having the qualities of first-level counselor. And this is very, very important. And this is something which is going to make a big difference to us in the country, in our education system, in strengthening and taking forward the vision of NEP 2020 on socio-emotional learning. And it is in this context, if I may say so, that there are a lot of work is envisioned, and there are 2-3 things in the school system which is important, which needs to be done. It is a whole school approach to socio-emotional learning. It is a systemic approach to socio-emotional learning. We should not expect our teachers to be talking about socio-emotional learning if our administrators are not sensitized to these concerns. So it is important that the school as a whole gears up to it, whether it is the curriculum, whether it is the assessment, whether it is our behavior with the gate man or with the Mali or with the other support staff. So, these are some of the main points which I would like to highlight. Like I said, effective concerns has been my passion. So just to wind up in the 5 minutes and not in 1 minute, as of now, I would like to say this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anju ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are a book, I think, in itself. If I can ask you to speak on NEP, you would definitely take a day. I would still request you to be on there, hang on. And I would request now Dr. Jagdish to be pinged, please. May I request? And Dr. Jagdish, may I introduce you to the audience? Dr. A. Jagdish, Head of the Department, Developmental Health Clinic, Apollo Hospital, Senior Consultant, Neonatal and Pediatric Early Interventionist. May I request the IT team to please ping sir. Sir is also a certified master trainer in early intervention with neurodevelopment disabilities, certified master trainer in autism tools from the Pediatric Neurology, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, also serving and coordinating the National Health Mission project, the Government of Telangana State. His basic areas of interest, which I would share a little with you, sir, is the 0 to 1,000 days, which I really, really liked. Having been a principal for 30 years in this job, I would definitely akin with you when I say early screening, early diagnosis, early intervention from a medical point of view. For me, it is more from a cognitive and a developmental point of view. Autism spectrum disorder, attention, the ADHD, which is common these days, ADD, cerebral palsy, and genetic disorders. Welcome, Dr. Jagdish, on behalf of the management and all of us to the virtual conference,
Thank you.
NEP 2020. 1 minute again from you to open the discussion. I'm going to come back to you with questions again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, the participants. And I just heard that Dr. Professor Anjum Sibia Ma'am exactly uttered, pronounced the importance and significance of cell program, SEL, social and emotional learning, which is really missing piece of the intervention program from the early childhood age in India. Most of the countries, like developed countries, nations, they already started this. As the ma'am clearly stated that there are cues, IQ, intelligence quotient of the child. Everyone, every parent, every teacher focus on IQ of the child. But to get or to attain the IQ, there are other cues which are very important. That is the EQ, emotional quotient or emotional competence, social quotient or social competence, SQ, and spiritual quotient or spiritual competence, and also developmental quotient, DQ, and developmental competence, which are very important to gain or to attain the IQ. So it is very important. Another thing is, Madam, the NCERT, the focus on early childhood education, ECD, the new guidance, excellent, madam, real excellent. So that has to be implemented really. At the same time, I just remember and recall the Heckman, who was a Nobel in economic subject. He clearly stated and he advised all the nations that better to invest on antenatal health. Antenatal, during the pregnancy period, that is the day one of conception till the second birthday of the child, if we really invest on nutritional status of the woman and psycho-emotional aspect of the pregnant woman, everything, we can prevent the developmental disabilities in the country. It is very easy. Instead of allocating the budgets on the disability sector or everything, it is better to invest on the antenatal checkups. So it's really wonderful, ma'am, that Professor Anjum ma'am clearly stated and highlighted about this importance and significance of cell program. And also, everyone is a caregiver nowadays. Educational caregiver is the teacher, and academic caregiver. In the home environment, the parents are the caregivers. Fine. But what about the principal, primary, responsible, primary caregiver? This is what the missing is here. Principal, primary, responsible caregiver. Whether in the home environment or that is nursery or nurturing home environment, at the same time in the school, that is a teacher in academics. So we need to focus on all these things. Anyway, thank you very much for giving 1 minute of time to brief about this importance and significance of the first 1,000 days.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdish. Please be online and I'll come back to you once again. May I now take the pleasure of welcoming and introducing Dr. A. Senthil Kumaran, Chief Confluencer and co-founder of the Learners Conference. Dr. Senthil was the Principal Counselor and Head Education Excellence Initiatives of the Confederation of Indian Industries from till 31st July 2016. After that, Dr. Senthil has started groundbreaking work in the form of Learners Conference, an educational service in India. I'm happy for those words, sir, the education service. The Learners Conference is an educational program focused on developing a technology platform for teachers with the goals of enhancing peer learning as well as knowledge sharing. For the first time, I'm happy to hear people talking about teachers, training of teachers, and giving importance to us too. His capacity building program for senior leadership team and management committee members for educational institutions has been widely recognized within India and abroad. Dr. Senthil has shown himself to be a passionate teacher, a catalyst for change, as he calls himself, and with an idea for excellence in all fronts of work. Dr. Senthil, warm welcome to you on behalf of all of us. And again, a minute of your reflection.
Namaste to all the participants, and thank you very much, organizers, for getting me here to be part of this wonderful gathering, co-panelists who are experts basically in that particular space. Today, I will play the role of a teacher, and when I try to look at NEP and health and wellness, early childhood education, what I personally believe is we are trying to reinvent the wheel. What we had, somewhere over a period of time, we got too much jargonized, and then now we are trying to go back and say that, okay, social emotional learning has been part of design of our Gurukul system itself. When we try to talk about competency has been existing in our own past. Over a period of time, somewhere we have kind of forgotten, and a classic example could be Pandavas. 5 brothers, 5 different sets of competencies, minimum level achieved in all the areas, but they had their own uniqueness. So probably, I think, thanks to new education policy, which basically very, very clearly defines in its vision that the roots, we have to relive our roots while trying to benchmark ourselves with the global standards. And I'm sure that this particular document, first time at least, talks about very clearly that how exactly, with the timelines, with subcommittees, with achievements being mentioned year on year, reviewed year on year. I think that's something very, very important. And I look forward as a teacher, because for the first time in India, teachers will be called as professionals, I think, and we will talk about that a little later. But I think this is the first time that we will also be called as professionals. Not my co-panelist doctors are there, doctors and engineers, but teachers, I think we should be looking ourselves also as professionals, and we will surely talk about it. But this is the time to bring in change in Indian education and to become globally competitive by 2030, which this particular policy is trying to look forward to. Thank you, Padma ma'am, and I'll surely come back and chat.
Dr. Pansel, please be online again. Thank you. May I now take the pleasure of welcoming Professor Satyanarayan Garu, Head of the Department of Physical Education, Osmania University. Sir, could you connect to us, please? Harsha, can you ping sir, please? Is he there? Malti, please check with sir in the meantime, and then I move forward without wasting much time. Okay. Sir, good afternoon. Can you hear us, sir? Can you please unmute yourself? Just unmute. In the meantime, let's get me a little introduction to sir too. Professor V. Satyanarayan Garu from the Physical Education Department. He's been the Dean, Faculty of Education, Osmania University, from the Department of that. He's also been the Chairman, Board of Studies, Osmania University for 3 years and Kakatiya University for 2 years. He's been the Director of Physical Education, Osmania University for 4 years, Research Advisor for 9 years at Osmania University again, Head of the Department for 2 years at Osmania University. Sir has presented research articles of around 39 international journals and 60 national research papers that he has submitted in the National Archives. Welcome you, sir, to this August gathering. May I request you to give your 1 minute quick intro, please? Yes. So you're still not audible to us?
Sir, unplug your earphone.
Sir, can you speak normally, sir, without the earphones? Maybe the earphones are not compatible. Malti, I request you to connect to sir, please, and help him out. In the meantime, we move forward. Satyanarayan, sir, I'll come back again to you, sir. I'll come back again. Thank you. Rakesh. So when the NEP 2020 and discussions of this came up, Sudha ma'am, the academic director of the school, and Chairman sir, when they sat down, we divided the entire NEP into 5 modules. They were talking about multilingualism, they were talking about safety and security and all that. And I took up the picture of safety and health and wellness as the theme for today. The reason being what Dr. Senthil has said. I'm a teacher by profession, so I do want the health and wellness factor that I'm talking about to come and be spoken about. The health and wellness in terms of psychological wealth, the emotional health, the safety and security part of it, and the physical health, as these panel members were talking about. And that is the reason why we're focusing on this. The cognitive part, as Professor Anjum has said, is somehow down in the 4th part of the ladder. I have put up the EQ, the SQ, and the PQ, maybe the physical developmental quotient in the beginning. The IQ to me came last in the ladder. Please allow me to do that. And 2 things I would say about NEP 2020. Again, when I did read the manual as a research study or for my homework, I came up with these 2 words. They said flexibility for everybody. The NEP 2020 is flexible for students, flexible for teachers, for parents, for examinations, for curriculum, for different sectors. And that, I think, would be the hallmark when we put this presentation into practice at some point of time. On this small note, may we now start the panel discussion with my first discussion point going to Anjum ma'am once again. Professor Anjum, I hope you're there with me. The earlier concept, Anjum,
yes.
The earlier concept was the 10+2, and this is the new mantra that everybody is talking about, the 5+3+3+4. And the first starting of primary school from ages 3 to ages 8. We're talking of as young as Anganwadi workers, and we're talking of preschool, early childhood education coming up into it. Ma'am, could you throw a little more light on the safety and wellness that schools should focus on, whether vis-a-vis a teacher or a management or a school per se?
Thank you so much. It's a very pertinent question, though partly I had spoken about this when I was, in my earlier remarks. Like I said, the policy gives us the direction. At the same time, it also gives us the freedom, so that we can make changes according to our context. The main aspects of the policy are on experiential learning. And the basis of experiential learning is that children would need to collaborate, would need to cooperate, would need to observe, would need to reflect. So when you have all these aspects as the core of your pedagogy, all aspects related to these would need to be part of the school curriculum. As such, we have talked about caring, sharing, seva has been mentioned in the policy time and again, collaboration, relationship building, kindness, all these aspects are there, but these are not given separately as socio-emotional aspects. They are part and parcel of the curriculum. We talk about, plants, we talk about animals. So when we're talking about plants or an animal getting hurt, we are talking about emotions, we're talking about feelings, we're talking about relating to other person's pain. So, it is that the teachers would have to identify the peg points in the lesson where these aspects can be weaved in. There are so many lessons in which, we talk about helping elders, or we talk about helping the needy. And there are very many social emotional aspects which can be weaved in this. But very, very specifically, like I mentioned, the policy is talking about positive regard, is talking about emotions, sharing, relationship building, collaboration, cooperation, and kindness. And all these actually have to become part of teacher training. Like I've mentioned earlier, NCERT has been offering online Nishtha also, which talks about developing personal social qualities, positive regard, perspective taking. It talks about listening skills, so all these things teachers would need to imbibe in themselves. Only when they imbibe and they learn what perspective taking is, they would be able to appreciate child different perspective on a particular issue, on a particular concern, and how that different perspective can become a core of critical thinking, how that can be, integrated in taking decisions, in taking group decisions on projects which are experiential in nature and which would be, based on case studies, on projects, and various other, collaborative aspects in the classroom. So from my side, I see it as a very, very integrated approach in the curriculum, which focuses on all aspects of socio-emotional learning, depending on whatever the age the child is,
Professor Anjum ma'am, I once again coming back to the same question. We are all putting the onus on the teacher again in the classroom. So we are working and working, coming back. So whatever SL component we are all talking of, the social emotional quotient that you're talking about, should first then be imbibed literally into the cell of each and every person who stands as a teacher in the classroom, especially at the ECCE level.
Absolutely. In fact, socio-emotional learning or effective aspects or catering to students' feelings and emotions are premised at elementary stages. It is only when teachers enter senior standards, they feel now it is that their focus shifts from caring concerns to academic concerns. So somewhere, in teacher training already in our country, all these things were there. The only thing is that we didn't talk about effective aspects or socio-emotional aspects being talked in terms of learning outcomes. They were there, they were taken for sort of granted. They were always there, but they were not recognized. Now you have got a recognition for this. You will be talking about achievements in terms of learning outcomes, which are cognitive and as well as socio-emotional. So once those are there, then the progresses have to be reported accordingly. And that is where the holistic progress card, which has come out and which is being worked on, is talking about 360-degree assessment. So it's not only the teacher, it is also the parent who is an equal stakeholder in the whole assessment process. And the number of years and the time spent at home is much more. So socio-emotional learning, in fact, starts very much from the family and then would get strengthened in school with the kind of vision NEP has given us.
Thank you, Professor Anjan. Now, with, again, teachers being in the center of this entire teaching learning process, as it has always been, we are also talking of NEP counselors and well-trained social workers entering the school system. I'm worried about the number. They're saying that the schools, the Angalwadis, the primary sector should have more children, more teachers who are trained counselors and who are trained special educators getting into the system. Dr. Jagdish, my next question comes to you. All of us in India know that there's a severe shortage for special educators and school counselors who can help the needs of students. So are we talking of teacher becoming a special educator herself without the degrees that I'm talking about? Or how do we ensure this balance now? Because you deal mostly with special education and neurodevelopment disorders among children.
Here, actually, the kids with special needs are under a battle for the pre-primary or primary education that is there. And approximately 240 affiliated CBSE schools in Telangana state. I'm just giving an example. Regular teachers already they are under the tremendous pressure of dealing their regular classroom children who are having some specific learning disabilities like dyslexia, dyscalculia, or dyspraxia, or whatever. At the same time, the behavioral issues also they are challenging. Okay, like ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. Along with that, nowadays post-COVID sequelae introduced the autism spectrum disorder (ASD) with some comorbidities or associated conditions. Just entered this academic year into the normal school, like with speech language communication development delay, adaptive skills development delay, and also personal social language, all this. So this now another, population, children population entered. So all are burdened to the normal teacher. So there is an emergency to recruit on permanent basis, not on the contract basis, permanent basis. The special educators should be appointed on contract, not, I'm using the word again, permanent, so that the enrollment in B.Ed special education for intellectual disability or visual impairment or hearing impairment will be improved. But what is happening nowadays? You are seeing, we are witnessing that many special educators are not, positioned in the CBSE schools because of the problems. And one special educator cannot, attend or address the special children in the particular, the class or the school or section. At the same time, in Telangana, 68,163 children with special needs are there, out of 61,558 primary and 6,605 secondary group of children are there. So what about these children? It's really the worrying aspect is the statistic. As per the inclusive education practices in India, which has been started from 1972, till now there is no permanent base of recruitment in India. Only contract basis only they are recruiting under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or other schools, even in the CBSE schools also. As per the central government, the scale pay is 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, will be useful for the special educator. So as per the central government pay scale, they have to allocate particular scale. Then only the special educators will get some recognition and also, the passionism, everything, interest also to work. And also, if the coordination between the Rehabilitation Council of India, which is directing the norms and regulations of the special education in the country, at the same time, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, and Ministry of Education, And also state governments like collaborating with other departments like Women and Child Welfare Department. There should be a kind of coordination. So, everyone is, saying their own this one, but the coordination is missing in some way at some point somewhere. So that has to be bridged. And also many individuals are not enrolling in the B.Ed course nowadays. Okay, that is one more thing. Out of approximately 1,60,000, 60 to 80,000 of special educators only. Out of 1,60,000 rehabilitation professionals, including speech therapists, occupational therapists, and other psychologists, clinical psychologists or rehabilitation psychologists, 60 to 80,000 professionals belongs to only special education. So training normal education teachers on special education strategies or techniques may not be useful because special education itself is a separate course designed exclusively for the children with developmental disabilities, including autism spectrum disorder or ADHD or learning disability or HI or DI. So they are trained, they are licensed from the council. They are only supposed to attend or address, not the normal teachers. If you give this task to the normal teacher, it will be a double burden to them to address the child. At the same time, a normal teacher cannot, address or counsel the family member, because to attend the special child, the family counseling or family therapy is very important. So where is the time for the normal teacher to attend all these? So that is also one of the important. And as for the Rehabilitation Council of Registration Act, till now 60,000 to 80,000 special educators. So where are these? Most of the special educators are practicing outside rather than the CBSE schools. It is a fact. Only few CBSE schools or KV schools or some Navodaya schools, very less. They are, recruiting very less. That too on, contemporary or contract based. So this is what lacking. So if CBSE schools really, give the position to the qualified special educator with good payments and all, definitely there will be a, increase of the demand of the special education so that we can address the children with the special needs. That is also important. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdish. I would request the panel members to also quickly give me answers, replies, because I know all these statistics. I told you as a principal, I know the deficiencies of special educators. We have enough problems with us. Try giving me simpler remedies so that I can be putting it up in the research paper, then we do it also. Professor Satyanarayana Garu, are you there with me at least now? Could you connect? Malti, you'll have to check with sir, otherwise may I move forward? Sir, can you unmute yourself now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think I'm audible. So I think today, welcome to you all at a very wonderful debate and very wonderful program today you have arranged. And I just so far have learned about only the academic side of this thing, but I want to share my views about the health and the physical education part here. So Swami Vivekananda in the year 1964, when he is presenting his presentation in Chicago in 1964, he has given a clarion call to the youth of the globe, and he said that don't build the hospital, build the stadiums. He has given that particular word because we need the health of the child is very, very important. So catch them young and teach them right. So now the health issue is very, very now very dangerous to the science of the people here. And the quality,
May I interrupt you? Because when we're talking about this panel discussion on NEP 2020, the idea is vision to action. We know the vision. We are clear.
Yes.
It is already there. Just give me the action plan. For example, I have one small statistics for you.
Yeah.
It says 2.4 lakh schools don't even have a playground to play.
Yeah.
And we are talking about sports integration. You're talking of physical health of children.
Yeah.
I don't have sports teachers who are trained enough coming out from universities who can handle my children at the primary, the middle, and the senior schools. How would you address this?
Yes, this was the old concept, but now today we have very well trained teachers, and they have previously it was the diploma in physical education was enough, but now it has reached to DPEd and BPEd and MPEd, in MPhil and PhD. Well qualified teachers are available all over the country, and we need to the employment is very less, and we need to give this complete flexibility and freedom to act upon the children. Because if we were we are now a physical education teacher is responsible for the total population of the school. When the health related fitness is very, very important. Then among that health related fitness and what is the health concept? The quality of health, quality of health, that is quality of life, which enables individual to live most and serve best. But here now the well-trained PETs are available in the country, and now it is not like that. Now the recruitment should be taken place, and we have to see the two important issues about physical education. What is catch them young and teach them right? The second is prevention is better than cure. The third is talent search. So these are the three aspects about physical education.
May I interrupt with due respect to you, sir? So when you're talking as the dean of the physical education department and the teachers are getting trained under you, do
Yes.
you bring in this aspect of emotional health, emotional and safety health among your teachers also? Because I remember the old PET teachers, the concept that we had, somebody whom you should be scared of, somebody who can control, somebody who is strict enough that even beyond the principal, they're scared of the physical education. Are you changing this concept, sir? Because
certainly the concept will change. Previously, we have the 5 important objectives of physical education. One is physically fit, mentally sound, emotionally balanced, spiritually enriched, and socially well adjusted. Now the transformation has come from the pandemic period, and it is like friendly police, and the students are friendly with the PET, because now he is able to penetrate with their mind and register what is the importance of the fitness and how you have to balance your emotions when you are totally feeling with anxiety and aggression qualities. And now every PET is trying to give the health issues, and at the same time the mental stability they are giving. At the same time, they are allowing the children to play in the school the later of the hours. And you already have seen now. You said, madam, 23 lakhs of people are not having the playgrounds. But now the thing is, here we have the play fields. We have we have the 6th floor, 7th floor, 20th floor building. In between, we are now we have seen in Western countries they are building the tracks in between, because if they don't have play fields among the open areas, but they are building the 20 meters track in the middle of the floor, and they are providing all the facilities. Now the main concept is every child should have the physical movement. This is very, very important. If you don't have any physical movement regularly, at least for half an hour. Now every day, now we have to define the days like this. Monday is a peaceful day, and you have to start with yoga. And Tuesday is a cheerful day. You have to go for walking. And the Thursday, Wednesday, it's a powerful day. You have to go for yoga. You have to go for swimming and cycling. And then variety of exercises are provided for you with the recreation fun. And we have to protect the concept of the health for every child. Because if the child is,
Thank you. I'll come back to you once again on that. Because idealistically speaking, yes, these are all fantastic points that you're talking. I have 14 physical education teachers in my school, and my children enjoy when the teachers come and they go onto the grounds. I'm happy there. Dr. Senthil, my question to you is again, back to my teacher. Everybody talks of students, everybody talks of stakeholder students, stakeholder parents, stakeholder management. Where is my teacher? Where are we in the picture? Why are we not being given? For the first time, I heard a word professional being used for becoming a teacher. But may I ask you to throw light on this? What are the safety, health, wellness aspects for a teacher that you can talk about? You being the most powerful speaker that I've heard many times.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, what happens, one of the very important things which I wanted to stress upon is, which disturbs me as a teacher, is somewhere health and wellness has also become another subject. It has become a subject. It is still not and must be for everybody to follow. I'll come to the teacher perspective a little later. But before that, this is my concern, and I have been talking to multiple agencies who are part of the NEP, saying that somewhere, why are you trying to talk about this particular aspect as a subject? In CBSE, we talk about sports integration, art integration into the subjects. So when we try to talk about art integration, sports integration into all these aspects of it, why are you trying to consider this a subject, design a curriculum for it, design a complete what to be done, and then to be implemented? The same problem what we saw in languages happening. When it came to languages also we had the same problem. Language, we started teaching like any other subject. And suddenly we started seeing that the students don't have any interest in reading, or pleasure reading. It's not only reading in that particular perspective, in pleasure reading or any one of those aspects. What is my personal learning before even coming to teacher is, there are a few things which we need to look at what NEP is trying to drive and where exactly NEP is trying to get all these aspects, what we are trying to talk about. First and the foremost thing is that we really need to go back and revisit what is the purpose of education itself. Few years back when I was in Finland, I saw a very beautiful statement coming up by Professor Jari Salomon, head of the Department of Education of University of Helsinki. In his presentation, he had mentioned the purpose of education is not to create superstars, but active, happy, and good citizens. So it very clearly says, like Professor Satyanarayan said, about stadium, here it talks about activeness, it talks about happy, it talks about good citizens. Now, when I try to look at this particular definition of education, this itself expects me as a school, my role itself is changing now. Schools are not all about finishing syllabus, finishing things before December, then conducting 3 months, 5 times aspects. No, that's not all about. It is all about how the schools can create experiences. To create these experiences, you need teachers. And if teachers are not sufficiently equipped, I don't think we are not going to work on it. So the purpose of school itself is that how exactly experiences can be created that can lead to newer competencies and changes in the attitudes and future behavior of these kids. And that's what, when you try to talk about the new education policies, underlying comment which talks about the purpose of school is no more. And imagine when we don't have 10th and 12th examination. I'm just thinking, if we don't have a 10th and 12th examination, what exactly will happen? And that's going to kind of put a lot of pressure on many of us. It's going to put a lot of pressure. Now, to create that experience, the teacher also must be equipped. Let me take one example on well-being, social emotional learning and well-being for the teacher. When COVID came in, most of the teachers never knew how to sit in front of a laptop or mobile and deliver classes. Somebody asked me a very simple question, sir, what should I do to make sure that physical activity? So I loved some example in Gujarat in one of the schools which I work, that actually the sports teachers had put their mobile, put rubber bands, did yoga. The students actually did it. But the regular teachers, they never had anything as such. So we really need to understand this particular perspective. I was trying to tell the teachers, can you at least ask the child that, can you look left, right, 10 times, up, down, and that itself will make, because many teachers had frozen shoulders by evening because they were not trained to sit in front of a computer, and they actually went through that. Many people actually started following. So these are some of the one very important thing. Second is for the teacher, when it comes to well-being, in our timetable, do we have something called as a my period or a me period, where I would like to sit down and actually work on it? In one of the schools in Chennai, which I visited, I was quite amazed to see that they had a small room called as my room. In that particular room, there was a place where there was a massage chair being kept. There was a music, tabs, 5 tabs were kept with the yoga kind of a mat and a pillow where people can do. They had kept some small, games which they can play, quick games. They also had some crayons being kept in a room where teachers can actually go and actually release their own thing. Otherwise, what happens? One teacher leaves the class, and particularly, I think once children come back after physical education class, and I know now the academic year is starting, most of the principals who are sitting here, they have only one period, one problem right now. Teachers coming back and telling them how not to give them one period after the sports period. That's the only thing that they have. And how we can make a timetable like that, I've still not understood as a teacher. It will take years together to basically work, only because our teachers have not been trained how to handle that particular kid who is coming fresh from the ground. And I think this is where the investment on teacher strategies, methods on teachers is going to help quite a lot our teachers. And I will come to the professional standards a little later, because in professional standards also, unfortunately, in the whole document, the draft document which is there is no mention. We talk about the teacher standard, professional standard. There is no mention of well-being as such. Only it says that the children's well-being and safety must be one of the objective of the teacher, but it doesn't talk about the well-being of it. So this is where the journey has to start. And I'm sure some of the progressive management like yours must do that kind of an investment on teachers to basically learn more SEL strategies in a regular class, whether it is online or offline. And I will add more points a little later when we progress.
Dr. Senthil, you're welcome to my school. Some of the points that you've given to me are being implemented, but it would be nice to hear from you again. Professor
Sure.
and to all my panel members, my last question, and all of you are going to comment on this. Equally same. Two things. India is 126 out of 137 in the happiness index. They call us not a happy country. Two, we're talking of a happiness report card, a holistic report card where the child has to be gratified and made happy at the end of the year, so that, I don't know, but yes, the child is at least going happy, because that's the definition which Dr. Senthil has given me: active, happy, good citizens of a country moving out of classrooms. Can you tell me, how do I bridge this now? When the entire society itself, according to statistics, people say it's not a happy country. May I have all the panelists on board? Anjum Sibia ma'am, I'm starting with you. 1 minute, we're already 4:46, so 1 minute each. How are we not happy? And how do I give you a happiness report card or a holistic report card to my children? How?
Absolutely. I think this is a very, very pertinent concern and a very, very good question, though very difficult to answer, because if you look at statistics, definitely what you are saying, we are not a very happy country. We are quite down in that list, where the placing of our country is. But if you look at our recent, research on students' mental health survey, which we did last year during COVID times, actually students' perceptions told us that they are happy and they like going to school. They want to take responsibility for their actions, right? So these are one or two things which were quite surprisingly, we never think that children are happy going to school, but largely children, this data was huge. It was on 4 lakh students, 10 types of schools, and they did talk about being happy going to schools. So if you really see the behavioral engagement is very positive with the place which is linked to stress. A lot of stress they see is given to school, given in schools due to examinations and all that. So the thing is that in general, children are happy. It is our context, it is our situation which makes them, what they are, or perhaps, as they grow up, the demands of the situation, the demands of the society, the demands of the parents pressure is also a very, very big concern. I have really no solution for this. The only thing is that we should start valuing each individual. Let's not look at the child in terms of having a deficit. If the child does not have something in comparison to his peer, let us look at children just as differences. So the deficit perspective in which we move in our society, whether we are, educators or we are parents or siblings, we start looking at people as not having this, not as a person who's different. So that deficit perspective should move to the difference perspective, and acceptance of child as he or she is would definitely make a big change in making the child understand and develop the self in that child, And if the self develops positively, the self-concept, the self-esteem is going to be high, and that is what's going to lead to any kind of positive emotion, joy, happiness, and all related emotions.
Thank you, Professor Anjum. That's a lovely answer to me. Dr. Jagdish, what ma'am has said, and I'm asking you the same thing. I have an autistic child writing his grade 10 exams with me now. I struggled with the parents for almost 10 years to understand the same thing what Professor Ma'am is saying. The difference between what a child does not have, a deficit, versus the difference that the child could do to the society. The child now is a wonderful musician, is a very good graphic analyst or a graphic organizer, does computer games for me. So can you educate parents when they come to you and don't look just, I mean, you are a medical practitioner, I understand that, but can you educate parents also in the sense, you're also a part teacher for me now. Can you tell parents it's no longer a deficit model at all?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's a really reasonable question which you asked me. The difference between 4 Ds are misleading. Developmental delay, developmental stagnation, developmental regression, and development diseases. I mean to say deficit, disorder, difficulty, disease. 4 are different. Next, impairment, disability, handicap. 3 are different. So there is a misinterpretation and there is a misdiagnosis and there is a misintervention which is happening nowadays. And the other point, the child's mental and academic development. Nowadays, if you classify the 3 types, one is the positive stress response. If you say the child, good beta, you have done good job, excellent, it's a kind of reinforcement. So you are encouraging the child to do. Second is tolerable stress response. You have not done. Look at that child. He is doing well. This comparison in the family, I mean within the family or in the school, which will leads to development of chronic stress in the child. Okay. Third is toxic stress response. This is the final, which is very dangerous, which will derail the child's emotional, psychological, social, spiritual, cognitive development. I mean, even intellectual development also. So children respect those who respect them. A child may be having any disability or disease or developmental delay, watch her. So that's the other thing is the Anju ma'am clearly said that acceptance is very important. It is very difficult for the child's parents. Yes, ma'am.
I will revert again. What Anju ma'am said very clearly is children are happy coming to school.
Yes.
I see them happy coming to school.
Yes.
My 4,000 children are pretty happy when they come to school on the ground. My concern comes with how do you handle a parent a group which is not getting happy now? If the children are happy, so somewhere we are unhappy. Maybe as we're growing adults, the competition, the pressures, the comparisons, is working on children too. So my request to you again, as a medical practitioner, can you handle this part of it with parents also?
Yes. I never start treating the child. I will start tuning the child's parents' mindset first. It will take minimum 8 sessions.
Good.
But it gives a patience. Generally, the parents, they expect higher expectations from the doctor, as from the therapist, or from the teacher. Definitely, they come with some expectations. So they don't know exactly what is happening to the child's brain inside, which is causing the child to behave outside. So the teachers and parents only look at the behavioral mannerisms of the child, okay, not inside what is happening. So it is a medical professional to find out the reason, I mean the rational or etiological factor, what is happening inside of the brain. So it needs some kind of sessions, number of sessions to educate the psychotherapy or family therapy or whatever the family counseling. After that, once the child's parents accepted, then the intervention will be effective and efficient. So we need to tackle the parents.
Do not stop it at one point of time, sir. Continue with parents because they are, to me, the ones who require more interventions than the children per se. Sorry for that if I've said that against with the adults in front of me. I'm sorry about that. Dr. Senthil, how do I bring in happiness in a country? You went to Finland. You've been there. Unmute, sir. Yeah, you've been with Finland. And Finland is in the top of the happiness quotient. I do really want to go there and see what makes them happy and what makes my country unhappy. What is it happening?
So first of all, I think we need to use these indices in the right perspective. When we try to talk about happiness, it's been very loosely used term. When we try to talk about happiness index, it was earlier called as only connected to GDP per capita.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the actual perspective. From there, now at least we have moved and the definition itself has changed, which says equitable, inclusive, balanced economic growth that promotes happiness and well-being of the people. So this is the actual definition when we try to talk about the happiness part of it, happiness index part of it. The second important thing is the criteria. We need to understand the criteria, because I'll surely touch upon the Finland, but I need this right awareness also to go through this particular program to the people, that there are 6 points which, the 6 points which very, very clearly talks about it. One is GDP per capita is one aspect. Second is the social support. So the 3,000 people who get interviewed in the whole process from every country, 150 plus countries, they are asked a question of, do you have social support? If you are in crisis, do you have a support? Third, healthy life expectancy, which basically talks about the doctors can give these statistics very, very clear. Fourth, freedom to make life choices. Freedom to make life choices. Fifth, generosity. And sixth is perception of corruption. Perception of corruption. Now, these are the 6 important criteria which gets to 3,000 people in a country. They get interviewed, and this particular data is there, because this data should not mislead us. If you take 2022 data, in 2022 data, Russia and Ukraine are in 92 and 95 position.
Above us.
Above all of us. But actually, when you try to see the war is going on, automatically the expenditure will be more, the GDP will increase. So can we use that as parameter? No. So this is where I think we really need to understand that when we are trying to talk about happiness per se as such, because in countries like Finland, there are 3 T's which are very, very important when it comes to school. The first T is teacher. The faith on the teacher, the trust on the teacher is amazing. If I close my door, the principal cannot come into my classroom to check what's happening in my classroom. But unfortunately, in our schools, there is a teacher, there is a coordinator, there is a HOD, there is a head, section heads, and then there is a vice principal, and there is a principal. So you have a structure which ensures the story of, there was a rat and a cat and a dog and a, thief being brought in. So the trust factor is something. First and the foremost thing is trust on the teacher is very, very important. The second important thing is that there's a lot of cultural context to it. There's a lot of cultural context to it. The freedom to choose when you try to look at in this particular criteria in Finland, you will be able to understand by 16, the child, by 17, the parents expects the child to get out of home. Can we do that in India? Till 26, till he goes for his first employment, we say, beta, bye-bye, mithai khao, meetha khao, and go to the work. That is the one simple example which I'm talking about, freedom to make. Second point, social support which comes in the index. Cradle to grave. Cradle to grave, the day when the doctor is here, the day when the child gets birth, there is a kit, birth suit kit, which is made of cardboard box, and the complete box has been given so that this particular child can be taken after delivery, and till his death, he's been taken care through Social Security. And that's something very, very important, which we really need to look from that particular part of it. The perception of corruption. The perception of corruption, which has been talked about in that part of the world, when we try to talk about lobbying, the vocabularies, again, I think we need to be a little more cautious when we try to use the lobbying, which happens in that particular part is quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And the best thing is that schools, the most sought after job, sorry, doctor is there, the medical professionals are not the most sought after. The teacher is like getting into one of the institution of excellence or eminence in India. These people go only for that. So if there are only 4 to 8% of people who are getting into education, that means the kind of respect. Now we may have to look back our own history, because in history, in our evolution, if you try to look at it, in our custom tradition, the guru always has been the best person to be looked after. Pre-independence, any government, brown envelope comes, the villager used to run to the teacher. But today, they come only twice. One for admission, once if they get failed for tuitions. Otherwise, they don't even come to us. So we really need to be very, very We need
I
to be
can
very,
Google
very
it later.
clear. So we may have to kind of reinvent what our past was. And when I came back after Finland, my first visit, somebody asked me this question, like what you asked me, what is the difference between India and this? Our Gurukul system was existing in that part of the world. Our Gurukul system is existing till date in that part of the world, and we really need to look at it. But this also brings in me. But at least now I'm happy, because when you're trying to talk about happiness, there are 3 levels of happiness which people really need to look at. One is momentary. थोड़ा समय खुश हुआ, खा लिया, लड्डू खा लिया, feel कर लिया. That is one kind of happiness. The second happiness is you feel gratitude if somebody has helped you. That is more coming from the little deeper level of happiness. And the third one is sustainable happiness. So when we are trying to talk about that kind of a happiness index, we need to look at this sustainable happiness. And sustainable happiness basically talks about continuous learning. Continuous learning, which is very, very, very important thing. And unfortunately, in Indian schools, we don't have independent learning strategies. We don't have independent learning strategies, and we need to do a lot of investment on independent learning strategies. And every school which I go now, I have started saying, yadi aapka independent learning strategies was good, then during the COVID time, no parent would have come and complain and say, mera bacha 15 minute nahi baithta independently. This was one of the challenges which most of the schools in the country had. And when we try to talk about sustainable, it also talks about how the child can become empathetic. How I can become empathetic, compassionate, and finding the, to put it in a very lighter term, I think who understand the Maslow's theory, there is something called a self-actualization part of it in the tip. And that self-actualization is something which we really need to look at it. Because in my recent visit to OECD PISA for School program, when I went there, I learned something very, very interesting. I learned, and this is going to be, mark my words, in 2030, by 2030, the new definition of lifelong learning, which is being discussed right now when we are talking, is 3 skill sets which the child is supposed to look at it. 1, create new solution. That skill is going to be the first skill which every child will have to look at it. And while finding the solution, he has to adapt the technology. This is the point number 1. Point number 2, manage learning on their own and with others. Who are the other people? How do I collaborate? And that's where the peer learning, peer assessment, all that our holistic report card is actually trying to talk about, which is very, very important. And the third important thing is that find information independently. Find information independently and decide what to do with that information. Because many a times we are not able to know, because there is so much of fake news which is coming in. Today, if the child is not able to go back and do an analysis out of it, we will not be able to try to talk about it. So the choice, helping the student to independently make a choice, if you try to look at that happiness index is somewhere very beautifully connected to the framework which PISA for Schools comes in. Because that's something which I would like to make my summing up point. PISA for Schools as a framework. You can go and do a little Google. If you don't find it, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to share. It also talks about 7 points, which says every education practice.
You'll have to wait. I know you're a teacher. I know you're a teacher.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to Satyanand sir and then come back to you again.
No, 1 minute. I'll just close this and then come back, because so that then I think I'll be able to complete all the flow is complete. Otherwise, I would love to kind of come back again. And the PISA for Schools, when we are trying to talk about, there are 7 things which it basically talks about in educational practice of any school. First, how can we bring in resilience in our teaching learning practices? Resilience to be brought in the children. Second, self-efficacy. Whether I know, do I have sufficiently lived? Whether I'm able to live with a very, very limited thing is the second important thing. How competent I am to live with a minimum aspect. Third is relationship with peers, which is again very, very important. The fourth important is life satisfaction. Life satisfaction, which COVID taught us. I don't know, there are over 100 people sitting in this forum. How many of you got even a wedding invitation in that COVID time when we had only 50 people government order? I think that itself told us what is our own value in our own. We are not even in the invitation list of 50 people. So that was one more important thing. Fifth, it talks about health. Sixth, it's talk about a very important aspect called as motivation for learning. I'm seeing a new trend in the country right now, where earlier people used to say, why should I study social studies? Now people have started saying, why should I study physics? Why should I study maths? So there's a new trend which the students are now getting into. And the seventh, this is where the schools have to kind of look at it, enhance the teaching learning practices of your school. If you're not enhancing the teaching learning practice, you're not going anywhere. So these are some of my thoughts from the Happiness Finland NEP and the school. So these are my points. Sorry to take extra time because I wanted this particular perspective to be very, very clear. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to listen to you. Professor Satyanarayana Garu. You always sit on the happy seat, sir, because your team of physical education teachers always make my students happy. So how is it in the college that you run? Are your physical education teachers the happy ones? So unmute again, please. So I want you to talk only on the context that I told you, sir. Are your teachers happy in the physical education college you're running, or what makes them happy?
The thing is that the first very important aspect is the health of the child, and we are discussing. And when I've been to China in Beijing Olympics now, they have begun the slogan of one dream, one world. And when the London Olympics, they started sports for all, health for all. And the recent concept is live to play and play to live. So you be on the ground for a period that your physical activity is very compulsory, not only for even the top school topper also urged to play. I recall the sound mind in a sound body concept is given by Aristotle. And the thing is, you can even Plato also told, you can discover about a man in an hour of play rather than in a year or a year of discussion. So play is the aimless expenditure of the exuberant energy of the child. And now the present tendency is now it is compulsion only on academic side, and we are not at all giving any freedom for the child to play on the ground. So if it is the open ground is not available, there are very ways and means. Now the physical movement is very, very important, and it can be done through yogic practice or through jogging or through swimming or any aspect. But we parents and the teachers must allow the child to play at least for 1 hour in the game, and a compulsory education should be implemented. Even though in NEP policy it is focusing like that, and from the primary level also the physical education activity should begin. So we have to educate about the physics and how to maintain the good health. So then only if your body is health only, you can go for any activity. But if you're with a weak mind, with a weak body, how can you expect a child to get into the rhythm of the educational practice? So that's why NEP policy is saying that from upper primary school level also, you have to appoint a teacher, and you have to see that minimum physical activity begins from the assembly, and you have to go for calisthenics for some time. Then after the calisthenics, now you have to give the child enough time in the evening to play any other game he prefers and he wants to play. And presently the teachers available in the schools or colleges and universities, and from the physical education, they are well qualified teachers. Again, I'm saying there is no dearth of teachers in physical education, because they are well qualified. They have completed the master's degree in physical education, and even postgrad, and even the research degrees, that is PhD and NAS degrees also. Like that, now the teachers are well equipped with all the necessary things to impart the students.
Thank you. Thank you. On that note of all of you promising me, saying that the world or my country is getting to be a better, happy place, we conclude this session on health and wellness. Thank you, Professor Anjum. Thank you, Professor Senthil. Thank you, Dr. Jagdish, and thank you, Professor Satyanarayana Garu. This thing has been entirely on live with many of my parents and children on the background. I would be sending you notes, concluding notes, or a repertoire from all my departments. Thank you once again from the entire management. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Co-panelists. Namaste and stay safe.